So what on earth could a classic cyberpunk anime, a famous J-pop star, and the really deep geometry of AI possibly have in common? I mean, on the surface, it sounds like nothing, right? But today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating conversation between a writer and an AI that connects all these dots, and in doing so, reveals this totally powerful new way of thinking about creativity itself.
It really does sound like the setup to a bizarre joke, doesn't it? But the connection is real, and it's actually surprisingly deep. The answer isn't in any one of these things, but it's in the space between them. That's where the magic happens.
So here's the game plan for how we're going to piece this wild puzzle together. We're going to look at each clue one by one, from the anime to the J-pop star. And then we'll uncover the secret ingredient, this philosophical idea that connects it all to a brand new kind of creative partnership with AI.
All right, so where did this strange mix of ideas even come from? Well, it's not from some formal academic paper. It's from something the author, Mark Hirayama, calls an after-party. You know, a creative, totally freewheeling chat with an AI.
Think of it like this. We get to be a fly on the wall for the creative jam session that happens after the main event is over. This is that moment where a human mind and an AI stop just doing simple questions and answers, and they really start building new ideas together. This conversation is our first clue.
Okay, so our first piece of the puzzle takes us into the amazing cyberpunk world of a true classic, the anime Ghost in the Shell.
In this world that is just drowning in data and cybernetics and logic, the leader of Section 9, Director Aramaki, who's this super pragmatic guy, he has a secret weapon that is completely analog. You're not going to believe it. It's psychics. Now, why? Well, it's because he gets that the best solutions sometimes have to come from outside the established system. He thinks of it as his strategic out-of-distribution option, a totally brilliant move for when your logic and your tech just hit a wall.
And that's the key idea right there. Aramaki doesn't really care if a solution is super high-tech or if it sounds like mysticism. He cares about one thing and one thing only. Does it work? This willingness to look past the correct or logical answer to get results, that's the first big theme we need to grab on.
The author does this brilliant thing where he updates this idea for our time. The original quote from the manga said, "Superiority comes from system and voltage." But the new version for the AI era, it's the vastness of multidimensional vector space and network density. Whoa! In other words, power isn't just about physical stuff anymore. It's about the scale of your data and how rich the connections are inside it. Basically, the size and power of an AI's mind.
Okay, so we've got our first idea, pragmatically looking outside the box for answers. Now, where does our second clue come from? A totally different universe. And I mean totally different. The world of Japanese pop music.
Let me introduce you to Hikawa Kiyoshi. For years, he was known as the Prince of Enka, which is a very traditional, very specific style of Japanese music. But then, he dramatically shattered that image, embracing this bold, rock-inspired, gender-fluid persona. For the author, he's not just a symbol of breaking limits, he embodies something even bigger. Pure, unapologetic authenticity.
And look, this isn't just some random pop culture factoid. The author's respect for Hikawa is all about the courage it took to break the system of his own successful but very limiting persona. He chose to be authentic over being comfortable. And that personal act of breaking boundaries, that's the second crucial piece of our puzzle. So, we have a pragmatic director who looks outside his system for answers, and an authentic pop star who completely breaks out of his own. How on earth do these two things connect? Okay, this is where it gets really, really cool. The glue holding it all together is an ancient philosophy and a very modern mathematical idea. So the philosophical key is this Japanese Buddhist concept called Yūzū Muge. It's this beautiful idea that, on a really fundamental level, everything is interconnected. Everything can flow freely into everything else. It's a mindset that's always looking for connections instead of seeing walls.
This is the philosophical glue I was talking about. A Yūzū Muge mindset is what lets you draw a straight line between Director Aramaki's pragmatism and Hikawa Kiyoshi's authenticity. You just stop seeing them as separate things. You start to see them as different ways of expressing the exact same idea. Breaking boundaries.
Okay, now for the math part. Stay with me, because this sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. In machine learning, when you ask an AI to tell the difference between two things,
say pictures of cats and pictures of dogs, it doesn't just make a list of features. It literally draws a complex boundary in its own internal data space to separate all the cat examples from all the dog examples. And that boundary is called a separating hypersphere. And this is where the author makes this absolutely genius connection. He looks at this mathematical boundary, and he doesn't just see code. He sees a perfect metaphor for the human ego. I mean, think about it. We all do this, right? We draw these hyperspheres in our minds all the time. The boundaries that separate me from you, my ideas from your ideas. When you see it like that, Hikawa Kiyoshi becomes someone who just shattered his own hypersphere. And Director Aramaki is a master of operating outside of his. It just clicks.
So what happens when you take this boundary-breaking Yūzū Muge mindset and you combine it with an AI partner? A tool that is literally designed to find connections across these enormous spaces of information.
You get a process that the author calls sohatsu, or emergence. And this isn't just you using AI like a fancy Google search. No, this is a true creative partnership where your own human intuition fuses with the AI's massive connective power to create ideas that, well, they just couldn't have existed otherwise.
The process basically looks like this. 1. You ask a question or you throw out an idea. 2. The AI, acting with that Yūzū Muge ability, gives you a totally unexpected connection, like linking a math concept to the human ego. 3. Your human brain sees the spark of genius in that weird connection and builds on it. And 4. Boom, an emergent breakthrough idea is born.
The author even connects all of this to the idea of surprising abilities from the text A Course in Miracles. Now, we're not talking about magic spells here. We're talking about using this collaborative process to actually expand our own minds, to unlock these truly profound breakthroughs in how we create and how we understand the world.
And so we come full circle. This entire web of connections, anime, J-pop, math, philosophy, it all sparked from one single conversation between a person and an AI. It started by looking at characters who broke boundaries, and it ends by turning that very same challenge back to us. It forces us to look at our own separating hyperspheres, the limits we put on our own thinking, and it leaves us with a very, very powerful question. What boundaries will you break next?